One day, a boy was digging in his garden when he saw a big toe sticking out of the ground. He tried to pick it up, but it was stuck. It wouldn't budge, so he pulled as hard as he could, and it came off in his hand. Then he heard something groan and scamper away. The boy took the big toe into the kitchen and showed it to his mom. "That looks like a nice piece of meat," she said. "I'll put it in the soup and we'll have it for dinner." That night, at the dinner table, the boy's father scooped the big toe out of the soup and chopped it up into 3 pieces. The father, the mother, and the boy each ate a piece. Then they did the dishes, and when it got dark, they went to bed. The boy fell asleep almost at once, but in the middle of the night he was rudely awakened by a strange sound. He listened closely. It sounded like there was a voice coming from outside his window, and it was calling to him. "Where is my big toe?" It groaned. When the boy heard that, he got very scared, but he thought, "It doesn't know where I am. It'll never find me." Then he heard it once more, only now it was closer. "Where is my big toe?" He groaned. The boy pulled his blankets over his head and closed his eyes. "I'll go to sleep," he thought. "When I wake up, it'll all be gone." But soon he heard the back door open, and again he heard the voice. "Where is my big toe?" It groaned again and again. Then the boy heard footsteps move through the kitchen and into the dining room, into the living room, into the front hall. They slowly climbed the stairs. Closer and closer they came. Soon, they were in the upstairs hall, and now they were outside his door. "Where is my big toe?" the voice groaned. The boy watched in horror as his bedroom door opened. Shaking with fear, the boy threw his bedclothes over his head and listened as the footsteps slowly moved through the dark towards his bed. Then they stopped. "Where is my big toe?" the voice groaned. "You've got it!" As the woman drove down a deserted highway, she noticed a lone pair of headlights quickly approaching her car from behind. When the car came closer, she noticed that it was going to overtake her. The car drew up beside her, but then the driver suddenly swerved back behind her car. She started getting nervous and kept an eye on the strange car in the rearview mirror. He pulled up dangerously close to her rear bumper and began flashing his high beams at her. The headlights dimmed for a moment, but then the high beams flashed again. The car behind her surged forward. The car followed her very closely and on tight curves or over hills. He would flash his high beams on and off. The frightened woman struggled to keep her eyes on the road and fought the urge to keep looking at the car behind her. Finally, she approached her exit, but the car continued to follow, flashing the high beams again and again. The terrified woman took out her mobile phone and dialed 911. When the operator answered, the woman screamed into the phone, "A car is following me. He keeps tailgating and blinking his lights at me." The woman gave her address, and in a few minutes she saw the red and blue lights of the police car in the distance. She breathed a heavy sigh of relief as she pulled into her driveway. But suddenly, the strange car pulled into the driveway behind her and began blinking its lights on and off like a maniac. The police car screeched to a halt in the woman's front lawn, and the 2 police officers jumped out with their guns drawn. They pulled the man out of the strange car and forced him to lie face down on the lawn, and they handcuffed him as he screamed, "There's someone in the car! There's someone in her car!" The policemen subtly pointed their guns at the woman's direction and fired. The woman screamed, but as she turned around, she saw the bloody corpse of her murderer fall out of the back of her seat. There was a large butcher knife still clasped in his cold, dead hand. The police searched her back seat and found duct tape, a blindfold, and a pair of handcuffs lying there. The woman realized that the man in the strange car had been trying to save her. When the police released him, he explained that as he pulled up behind her car and his headlights lit up her backseat, he had seen a man with a butcher knife rising up behind her. Just as the man was about to stab her, he flashed his high beams and the figure crouched back down. "I flashed my high beams every time I saw him raise the knife," he said. Bill whistled as he strolled through the park. He was on his way to meet his girlfriend Sally. He could smell spring in the air. He jingled the engagement ring in his pocket and thought about asking Sally to marry him. Sally sat down on a park bench, and Bill kneeled down in front of her. "Sally," Bill said, "you are the most beautiful girl I've ever met. I love you, and I want you to be my wife. Will you marry me?" Sally laughed and said, "Yes, I will marry you." As Bill gazed lovingly at his bride-to-be, his eyes lingered on the red velvet ribbon Sally always wore around her neck. "Why do you always wear that red ribbon?" Bill asked. Sally said, "Bill, I must never take off my red ribbon." Bill smiled at Sally and left the ribbon alone. Bill and Sally were married that June. Bill found a lovely little house in a nice neighborhood and they moved in. Bill bought Sally many party dresses, but Sally always wore her red ribbon with each outfit. Bill thought this was odd. Sally just smiled and said, "I must never take off my red ribbon." After a few years, Sally found out she was going to have a baby. This news delighted Bill. Sally talked with her friends who had babies, and Bill talked with his buddies who had children. When the big day came, Sally said, "Please, tell the doctor I must not take off my red ribbon." Bill was frustrated, but he promised Sally that he would tell the doctor. After the baby was born, Bill gave Sally flowers. "Thank you for the flowers, Bill," Sally said, "and thank you for telling the doctor I must not take off my red ribbon." Bill did not understand why the red ribbon was so important. "Do you want to hold little Billy?" Sally asked. Bill, Sally, and little Billy lived happily for many years in the small, lovely house in the nice neighborhood. When little Billy was a baby, he would sometimes reach for the red ribbon around his mother's neck. Sally would gently take his little hands in hers and coo at him, saying, "Mommy must never take off her red ribbon." The red ribbon frustrated Bill for a long time. He loved Sally with all of his heart, but did not understand her need to wear that red ribbon. After many years, Bill had an idea. "Our anniversary is coming up. I'll buy Sally a beautiful necklace. Then she'll take off that old red ribbon so she can wear the beautiful necklace." Their anniversary came. Bill took Sally to a fancy restaurant overlooking Central Park. They had a delicious meal. Then, Bill gave Sally a velvet box with a beautiful diamond necklace inside it. She opened it, smiled, and tears came out of her eyes. Bill put the necklace around her neck and started to take off the red ribbon. Sally stopped him and said, "I must never take off my red ribbon." Bill sat back in his seat with a huff. He looked at Sally and shook his head. "I may never understand," Bill said. Sally gently placed the diamond necklace back in the velvet box and closed the lid. "It's lovely, Bill. I will treasure it always," she said, "but I must never take off my red ribbon." "Why?" Bill asked, as he had for many years. Sally smiled and sadly shook her head. She did not answer him. Late that night, Bill was still awake. "I've loved Sally for more than 20 years, but she insists on wearing that horrible red ribbon. I think it's about time I find out why." Bill got out of bed and walked to Sally's side. Carefully, he pinched at the end of the bow on the ribbon. He began to slowly pull at it. The bow became smaller and smaller until the loops of the bow pulled through and only half the knot was left. Bill slid his fingers under the half knot and tugged. Zip. The red ribbon gave away, and pop, Sally's head came off. It rolled right onto the floor, bouncing in the moonlight. "I warned you," she said, as one large tear fell from her eye.